This conference will now be recorded.
Let me talk to you. Here's what I'm saying.
And got no proof.
Yeah.
David's on.
Linda, I sent a couple emails about the resolution for the credit card policy.
Yeah.
Being
Are you,
recorded.
okay, it's recorded.
It's 6 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order, regularly scheduled. Copley Township Trustee meeting, Monday, December 7th, 6 p.m., virtual and in person. If you will please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There's a few people on line. We have Fire Chief Bauer and Council David Farstein, and we have present here Trustee Schulte, Trustee Corner, myself, Trustee Dressler, Fiscal Officer Linda Pfeiffer, Service Director Mark Mitchell, Chief of Police Mark Meyer, Director of Economic Development Bob Klein, and the most important daily, day-to-day person, Administrator Janice Marshall. Any other guests that need to welcome? Okay. Anyone else want to be acknowledged? We're good. All right, we show the Board of Trustees, we are in contract labor negotiations. We will be requesting an exec session for that. Any other trustee business? To bring up now?
Yes, I have one. There's been some discussion through members or constituents asking if the township would like to participate in taking Santa and/or Santa helpers around to do a virtual showing in lieu of the circle decorating. This would necessitate some interaction with police, fire, and service. And we would certainly have to ask and see if Santa would be available. But with talking about December 20th, and it would be either a simple parade around the neighborhoods or possibly having a place where people could drive by a central location like the park. Probably going to a drive-through neighborhoods, but we're not 100% sure yet. So if the board would be okay with something like that, then I would ask the department heads if they would be okay participating with that as well. It'd be during the daylight hours on Sunday.
Oh, single date? You're going to do it a one-shot deal?
Yes, hopefully.
You have a date in mind?
Sunday, December 20th.
All right.
That's Santa if he finds right in the back of the police department gator.
There you have it. There, we could do that.
We do a gator run. So who's going to organize this then?
Myself and I believe there's one member of the fire department that would be glad to help if so inclined.
All right, we're gonna have to get volunteers. We have to pay people. We have a budget. You want to buy?
Well, the fire and
rolls,
police would probably be done with personnel on duty. Service department would be a Sunday thing, so I don't think under union contract you can ask for volunteers for that. I don't know that. So there might be some overtime issue there. I would like to include service as a show of the entire township, but we don't have to.
Excuse me, if you did it like, that next day, Monday, or the kids are out of school. Be a great thing.
Correct, but parents are not going to be home as much.
That's,
It almost has to be a weekend.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
I don't have any specific operation in mind. I just wonder, you say, so, yeah, some other communities, I've seen a variety of things, just what the reaction, or how long you want to do it, or how many.
I'm suspecting it would take 4 or 5 hours to make those rounds just through the densely populated.
Announce the streets and the route and put it online.
Yep.
Nobody else does.
And how would you interact with the residents?
Just away from the truck. No social touching or even getting close to
You
Sam.
know, handing things out.
No.
Just a Santa Claus drive-by.
Yep.
How is the community going to know that you're coming to the neighborhood and finding?
Social media.
That's what I just asked. Are you gonna have a route and the timing?
Yeah, we can do somewhat of a route. We can just name the neighborhoods. It's not that long of a list. We can name, we're gonna go to this neighborhood first, starting at whatever time it is, 11. And then this neighborhood, and this, and this, and this, watch for Santa to come by.
Well, we can always go through and blast horns on the plow truck too.
Yeah.
Get their
That sounds simple enough.
Ms. Marshall, do you have an opinion of it?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Sounds doable. You don't have to have a.
Giving Mr. Schultz some pause here.
It is giving you some pause.
Do you have a higher expectation or a lower?
Well, it's simply a matter of, we've shut down everything in this town because of the virus. And now we're gonna put this back out there. We're gonna do this on a Sunday, go neighborhood to neighborhood. I understand what you're saying with respect to getting social contact. But are you gonna have kids on the street that run toward Chief Myers Gator with Santa riding in the back of it? I'm being serious. Is there
Yeah,
safety concerns?
that
Yeah.
is an issue. That's
I
why.
agree. And that's why I think we limit it to the neighborhoods alone. You couldn't go down Chicota Road and do it. You couldn't go down Shawclog and do it. You could just hit the neighborhoods themselves. And I don't think you're not gonna be there long enough to cause any congregation.
May I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
What if you were to, we just finished a gig up in Independence where they had people come to their civic center and they passed out bags, stocking bags and popcorn balls. And they had Santa in one location. And people would stay in their cars, and they would just drive by and wave to Santa, and Santa would talk to them.
Well, that would cause a congregation that we're trying to avoid, like,
Well, if you do drive-by, you could have Santa out front here.
Yeah.
That's one option.
this
We're not
was
gonna
done.
get anything out. You don't have a lot of time.
This was done in a couple different communities. The way this came to be was on a social media website. It was discussed about it happening in another community. And then a couple of other people weighed in. It happened at their community as well. And it was well received. It was a nice break with the COVID conditions, and it did not cause any congregation or issues. That's why I brought it up.
When people come out, they want to take their picture with Santa.
No, you actually can't do it. Keep moving. You're not going to stop.
Every kid has a camera.
Yeah.
Every kid on a phone.
Correct. But
Every kid's running down the street because runs out for a selfie with the truck.
Well, and really the draw might be Chief Meyer, might not be Santa,
Yeah.
Correct.
right? So
Sure, that would be accurate.
Fair enough. Any comment on that, Chief Bauer? No.
No.
Now you're learning.
All right, well, do you want to, we have announced now, we do have a special meeting on Wednesday, 1 PM. We could discuss it again.
Well, we need some time to do it. I mean, if you want to discuss
we've come up
it.
with some ideas.
I'd like to see more meat on these bones before we say, let's go.
Some more details.
More details, yes.
All right, coordinate through Bruce and or slash all the department heads and see what you guys are comfortable doing.
We have a department head meeting tomorrow morning, if you'd like to have it talked about, or you can come to it. or-
I always say you want to make it simple and you don't have a.
What time is the meeting tomorrow morning?
10 o'clock.
I'll try and stop in and we'll discuss that and then have some details for the board members for Wednesday.
Okay.
How's that?
Good.
All right. Anything else? You can always bring something up later. Fiscal officer report, Linda.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. The resolution to adopt a credit card policy. Bruce, you had some questions on that?
Yeah, I sent a couple emails about it.
Yeah.
It says policy on it. So are you asking to have this as part of the policy manual?
I think it can be added to the policy manual. It's a credit card processing policy, where we take the credit cards like Visa, MasterCard, American Express. It's a policy on how we protect the township and process cards. It's a policy that needs to be followed by the attached users, authorized users.
So that's my question. Is it a policy or a procedure? If it's a policy, it has to go in, or should go in the policy manual.
Yes, I think it should,
Okay.
absolutely. It is a processing policy.
Okay, this is, do you want to,
Linda, and this is the line with industry standards?
Yes.
Did you make the motion?
I'll make a motion for discussion.
Second? Go ahead.
This is not the proper avenue to place something in the policy. You have to do a 14-day review, and there's some other things in our policy manual that would negate allowing this to go forward in this manner.
It's going to delay processing.
That's why I thought it was a procedure, not a policy.
If I might,
Go ahead.
so we have an amendment to the policy manual regarding the confidentiality that is required of those processing these credit card transactions. In another view, this could be a procedure in that it's going to be something that changes, I think, once you get going on how these transactions happen. So it's going to be a fairly fluid document for a couple months, I would guess, as you see what happens, where you want things put, what color paper you want it printed on. Those are all procedural type of things that can be fluid and changed easily according to how it goes in the next couple months. So you can have procedures outside of the policy manual that are just as enforceable, just as needing to be followed as a policy in the township policy manual. But if it's a procedure that is coming from your office as to how to transact these credit card transactions, then it can be changed. People can be added, subtracted without the 14-day requirement of posting it each time it's changed. Just something to consider.
Right, that's what I'm getting at. This appears to me to be a procedure, not a policy. We have a policy about us accepting credit cards and how it's done, the confidentiality. The procedure may change next month if the company you're using.
Not according to the credit card, I mean, the data operations center, and it has to be a certain process when we
Right.
process part.
Right.
You wanted to protect the township.
Right.
This will protect the township.
Right, but I agree with you 100%. I don't, that's not the argument. The argument is it a policy or a procedure?
I guess up to interpretation.
Well, that's,
So should our policy simply say that our credit card processing will be done in compliance with industry standards?
exactly. And then that industry standard is a procedure.
And then,
That's what this is.
then the fiscal office determines the exact procedures to run by.
That's what this is,
Right.
not a policy, it's a procedure.
So my first question is, does our policy say that?
The confidentiality part of the amendment to the policy does not mention company standards or industry
Industry
standards. It says coming from the fiscal office. So it's in accordance with the procedure outlined by the fiscal office.
Right.
Is in the amendment, which we can change. I mean, it's posted for 14 days, so you can add that wording to it and make it industry standards as opposed to fiscal office.
Does that make sense to you?
So we have.
I think it's, I mean, you can do what you want, but it's already in there. It says a procedure. Read it, would you please?
I don't have it.
Okay. It says, as indicated by the fiscal office. Well, that's referring to a procedure. And that's what my email was about. I was trying to get that answered prior to the meeting, but that's what I'm getting at here.
This is our policy, this is our procedure. It just sounds better. It's our policy, this is how it's done.
That's fine. It's a fiscal policy on the procedure of credit card transactions.
Right.
That's fine. You can use
It's a
the
fine
word.
line.
But it's not, this part doesn't go in the policy manual. If you want to go in the policy manual, it's already referring to it in the policy manual. If you want this in the policy manual, there's a procedure, it's gonna take 14 days to do, and so on. I'm just trying to clarify.
Does the payment card industry data security standards require us to have a policy that says this? Or can it be in procedure?
The auditors,
The auditors are going to want a policy.
they're gonna want to see it.
Okay, now, to be clear, are they going to want to see that in a policy, or is Bruce saying in a procedure, is a procedure good enough?
They will come and ask for the credit card procedure policy. They're gonna want to see this. They will.
Okay,
This is, I know them.
all right.
They will ask for the policy. So
Should we amend the current policy that is in the 14-day waiting period to reflect some of this?
Yeah, so that policy was posted on Monday, December 1st. So it's not ready to be considered tonight because of the change in meeting and so forth. So on the 14th or on the 28th, when we pass that amendment, that is one comment that we've received and we can make that change to it. It doesn't have to get reposted.
So why don't, I think it would make sense, Linda, maybe check with the auditors then and see exactly what they want in the policy versus your internal procedures.
Okay.
And make sure that the amendment happens to what was posted at the beginning of December. All right.
All right.
Is that okay?
I have a question, Linda, just on the procedure policy itself, so that we can make sure we're compliant with it.
Mhm.
On part 6.1, it says that the transaction has to be done on a computer designated for that purpose on the township's PCI VLAN. I don't know what that is. And I don't know if then on point 6.2, if the computer is expressly designated as belonging to the PCI environment. Are you familiar with what
Well,
those terms are and if we're in compliance?
Well, we don't want people to process credit cards on their home computer if they have access to VPN. We want them only to use computers here in town hall.
So what does PCI VLAN stand for?
It's defined on the first page.
It is.
PCI environment includes computers, network hardware, and the segment of the township network configured to meet these standards.
Like I could be working at home and have access to the township computer and run a crack. I wouldn't do that.
So is this saying that they're not permitted to do that?
Right.
So people working from home would not be able to process transactions? Okay, just so we're clear on what all we're asking. And then on section 10.4, the Information Technology Security Administrator, who is that?
Well, that would be probably me. I could say the fiscal officer.
To be consulted during engagements with new service providers to ensure PCI DSS compliance
That
and
is if I
assess
was
risk.
to jump from Merchant One to Heartland, let's say, as a credit card service provider.
Would you be able to assure PCI DSS compliance and assess risk?
What was that question again?
Well, it says that this Information Technology Security Administrator is going to assure PCI DSS compliance and assess risk. I'm wondering if you'd be able to do that.
Well, yeah.
So what are those things? Just in case you're not here and somebody else is doing it. I don't know
I
what
would
those
certainly
are.
hope they would consult me if they had any questions.
Okay,
So what we're saying is that Information Technology Security Administrator, there is no such person, relates to fiscal officer.
We do have information technology township. There is someone who is aware of what kind of safeguards we have for our computers. You don't deal with
Your
that.
IT
You don't
department.
deal with that personally, do you, Linda?
No, I just want to
Information
make sure.
technology with the software that scans spam and all those things, you deal with that?
No, I just deal with the
Because
procedure.
that's what this refers to.
Probably the IT department.
so is the IT department that,
I'm sorry, Janice, but to answer your question now, 10.4, is it the IT department or is it fiscal officer should be consulted? I think that's what you're asking, right?
yes,
Right.
I just wondered,
Because if there is a security issue, I mean, I want to know about it, so.
So what's the answer? You or IT?
I'll know what to do.
That means fiscal officer?
To be consulted.
So this needs to be amended.
Yes, sir. And Linda, what's giving rise to this is the auditor's request.
Well, yeah, I mean, they will call for it. As soon as they start seeing we process credit cards, they're gonna want to look.
Then to continue this discussion, if this is a procedure, which we've already indicated is a procedure, correct? Then we don't need to vote on it at all. It's not a resolution then for us. Is that accurate?
If we could approve the procedure, it's not a resolution for it to go into township policy.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
the only thing is you're going to have township personnel trying to follow this procedure. And if you don't look at it and know that that's something you want your township personnel to do and follow and is able to do that, then that creates issues between the township personnel and the fiscal office. So if the Board of Trustees approves the procedure for people that they employ to do these credit card transactions, then they are obligated to do that. If the fiscal office, they're also obligated, but we don't want to have a conflict between what the fiscal office is expecting and what is feasible for the employees to do.
Do we need a resolution for that or just a motion?
A resolution's fine. She put it in the form of a resolution. I just want to make sure that I'm clear about what the policy and the procedure is, so that when the employees of the township come to me and say, I don't understand what this means, or this is impossible to do, or any of those above, I am able to say, well, the board approved it, and so we've got to work with it and see what is happening.
So Janice, as you read this, is there anything else in here that you're concerned, in this procedure slash policy that you're concerned township personnel will not be able to follow?
I just personally don't understand some of it, and those are two things that, I mean, I'm not an IT guy, I'm not a third-party service provider, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page as to what this is saying and understanding that how we're going to enforce it and follow it. And so I'm just asking the questions that I don't understand, assuming that you do because you created it and so forth. So I wanted just to clarify those issues.
It gives the employees a guideline on how to process, what to do, what not to do. It's just a guideline that guides them through the process, what to do, what not to do to protect the township.
So it's not a policy, it's not a procedure, it's a guideline.
I guess. What?
It's not, we have to, as Janice is indicating here, we need to nail this down so we can accurately depict to our employees what they are doing.
They need a step-by-step procedure to follow. That's the way.
This looks to me like it's a procedure. And
That does me as well.
And it affects says procedures, right? So, and if you read the procedures that are there, they're the things you would expect to be there,
Right.
okay? Only the authorized personnel can process the credit cards. You can't keep the pre-digital security codes. Okay, it goes through very step-by-step things, common sense things almost.
Right.
So,
It's just when it gets into the system analysis and the PCI DSS compliance verified on an annual basis, I just want to make sure we're all cognizant of what that is and that we're going to get it annually.
so what is it? On 10.3 is where you are, right?
Yes.
So let's nail down one thing first. This is a procedure. Accurate? Okay, it's a procedure.
We don't have to vote on it, do
I'm sorry?
we? We don't have to vote on that.
We're just, you know,
Okay.
Okay, so it's going to be called the credit card processing procedure.
Okay, then let's go through point by point and make sure that each one of these points are explainable. And Ms. Marshall, I've read it too. Ms. Marshall, do you have any other concerns here? I'm not sure, again, I'm reading what a PCI DSS is. Payment card industry data standard, security standard.
I'm good all the way up to number 10. If number 6 is, I mean, if you check to make sure that our computers are designated on the township's PCI VLAN, then I assume you've done that. And then I'm fine up until number 10. And then I just want to make sure who's going to be doing these things. Is this, the fiscal office is going to get this annual basis compliance verification? 10.3. And I assume you have a written agreement that includes an acknowledgement that the service provider is responsible and so forth. That's probably in the
Yeah.
document you signed.
Yeah.
So who does 10.3 is the question, really. And it's to be verified on an annual basis by obtaining the service provider's attestation of compliance.
Well, that would be the fiscal officer.
So that's something you're prepared to do annually.
Hmm?
Any other questions?
I think that covers it. And
All
then,
right,
I'm sorry, just one more thing.
yeah.
The template response for credit card number received in email. So this is what you would like the administrative assistants to say or write back if somebody wants to give us a credit card through
Right.
email?
Right. It's suggested that they, just, it's an example.
Okay. So no credit card numbers in emails.
Right.
Over the phone?
No. Merchant One has the capability of sending an invoice where the credit card holder can go ahead and fill out that invoice with their own credit card number. And then Merchant One notifies us that it's been paid.
So
So the less we have access to those numbers, the better we are.
So section 3, Janice just asked about, what about payments over the phone? Section 3 talks about telephone payments.
You're saying they can give their number over the phone, not pay with their own phone. Is that what you're talking about?
Okay, when recording credit. This is in case it should happen, but Merchant One has the capability where they can just invoice the purchaser and they can pay via the website.
So somebody cannot pay over the phone.
They can pay over the phone, yeah. I mean, they can, I wouldn't,
Well, but the procedure is here for telephone payments,
right,
okay? And we're saying it's accessible to record all the information except for the 3-digit code.
right.
But is this someone calling in and you're taking their payment over the phone?
That's my question.
Or is
Somebody,
it somebody just typing it all in? We're not set up for them to pay by phone without calling in.
Right. So Scott is your first alternative, I assume. Is that correct, Linda?
They're calling in and paying over the phone.
yes, somebody calls in and wants a pavilion rental and they've given all the information and the dates available and they want to pay their deposit. Can they do that?
That's what we're trying to, that's what
Yeah.
we're.
Okay.
And according to
Or
the
they
policy, they can
or
do
they
it.
can be invoiced.
And the only thing that doesn't get recorded is the 3-digit code. Okay.
But
So there's nothing in here, procedure number 1 talks about authorized personnel. And exhibit A, who the authorized personnel is. Nowhere in here does it say when you can change authorized personnel. So I think procedure number 1 needs to say that, the fiscal officer will update as needed or something. If you want to, I know these 5 people might not work the rest of their lives.
yeah.
So I think that needs to be added. Scott, does it make sense to table this until she makes a couple amendments? Maybe we cover it again in 2 weeks,
3 weeks.
3 weeks, sorry.
Well, that's fine. If you want to take a closer look at it, you might want to exhibit A, the following employees is be processed by, you could set it up by position. I mean, I guess it's probably better to name them and then you just,
Change the
Well, we
exhibit.
just get the amended,
okay. We have, this is, so I'm going to amend the motion to, the motion is to adopt a credit card processing procedure.
I'll second that.
Okay. So we can continue the discussion, but it's no longer a resolution for a policy. It's a motion to adopt a credit card processing procedure. And we can table it if there are more things you want to.
so just so I'm clear, it's gonna be the credit card processing procedure, and we're going to amend the users to be,
I can just leave it as it is.
for approval, or
You can put, and
added or deleted.
it's approved by the board.
And you're going to add the term fiscal officer to 10.3 and 10.3.
Let's do it here. So we're on hold then for 2 weeks.
Three.
For the 28th.
All right, you guys want to wait? You want
Is
to,
that an issue?
you want to do it?
Yeah,
It is an issue?
yeah, it is an issue, but we can wait.
Well, why is it an issue?
Well, it's an issue because I've already committed to zoning that I would help them out as soon as we got it in place. So they can start taking credit cards and cheer Christmas. That'll end up this Friday, so not that big of an issue.
Can you wait 3
Wanting
weeks,
to
Loudon?
Get this in place.
They've waited 200 years.
We have, the guy who's so patient.
Had a bicentennial, never had it.
You know, we got merchant one, they're saying, okay, we're ready to go.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Hey, Scott, I don't want to be a stickler for the rules. We have two motions on the floor right now.
Well, I amended mine.
Okay.
I said my motion is no longer a resolution, it's a motion to adopt a credit card processing procedure.
Thank you.
Who's second? Okay. All right, and,
So the first motion.
we're gonna table. No one's scrapped, and then we'll just table it till the next meeting. And all in favor to table, say aye.
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 All right. Anything else? Linda, we gotta approve the minutes.
I'll have the minutes done by Friday.
What's that?
I'll have the minutes done by Friday.
So we have the minutes from last meeting?
No, that's one we gotta get done.
All right. Janice, you're on.
Thank you. The first resolution I have is to establish a capital projects fund for the purpose of accumulating resources for the acquisition, construction, or improvement of fixed assets of the Copley Township Police Department. So this is what we discussed at the last meeting regarding establishing capital project funds for the police and fire departments. Attached to the resolution is the list of capital projects that this fund would go toward paying for. These funds can be in place for up to 10 years, and you are able to purchase the items that are included with the resolution as part of what you are setting money aside for. You can put into this fund the amount which is greater of 5% of revenues for the fund or 1/6 of the previous year's expenses. So in the case of the police department, I would ask the fiscal office to verify my figures, but I believe that the amount from 2019 total expenses for fund number 2081 were $3,883,820.12. If we take 1/6 of that, the amount is $647,303.36. So if this resolution calls for the fiscal office to calculate that amount, and if that amount is correct, then that would be placed in this separate fund, taken out of 2081, it's transferred to this new fund, and it's set aside in there, the attached items, up to 10 years, and you can do that each year, you can do it year by year, you can do it as you're able to, really, throughout the years.
So this resolution could be to transfer the 1/6 of the 2019 expenses. Has
Yes,
to be determined by the fiscal.
yes, I believe it says that in it, that it says 1/6.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, we're doing these separately. Is there a motion?
Also move.
Second.
Discussion.
This is in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code on how much you can do. You did some research on that and mentioned to it.
Yes,
Just confirming.
You know. we just,
yes, it is,
Talked about it last meeting.
it It's ORC 5705.13.
I see that in the resolution. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Anything else? Linda, please call the roll.
Trustee Dressler?
Yes.
Trustee Kohler?
Yes.
Trustee Schultz?
Yes.
Thank you. Along those same lines, then I would request a similar resolution for the fire department. Looking from my records on, this would be for the two separate funds for fire department. So fund number 2111, according to my records, 1/6 of their expenditures in 2019 would calculate to be $294,675.23. And in fund number 2191, that amount would calculate to be $216,588.41. So each fund would contribute those two amounts into one capital expenditures fund, and it would be set to purchase the items that are attached to the resolution.
So move. Schultz?
Now second, Palmer.
Discussion. Linda, please call the roll.
Trustee Dressler?
Yes.
Trustee Kohler?
Yes.
Trustee Schultz?
Yes.
Thank you. And that is all I have tonight.
Anything else for Janice? Chief Bauer. Yes, on.
Unmute yourself, or we'll mute you.
I apologize. I thought I already did that. Maybe it times out after a while. Everybody able to hear me okay?
Gotcha.
So good evening, everyone. First item for the board that I have is a resolution approving purchase orders and blanket certificates for the fire department for 2021.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Linda, please call the roll.
Trustee Dressler?
Yes.
Trustee Kohler?
Yes.
Trustee Schultz?
I've never reviewed this, so I'm going to abstain.
All right.
Thank you. My next issue for the board's consideration is the approval of a Lifeline ambulance, along with, if you'll note in the resolution, it also calls for the fiscal officer to amend the 2020 permanent appropriations according to the amount in the resolution. This is something that has been in consideration and discussion over the last several weeks, considering the CARES Act money that we were able to acquire. I believe that this is an appropriate use of those funds. We are still in desperate need, even though we have one ambulance on order. We're still in desperate need of an additional ambulance. Of our frontline fleet, 2 of our 3 ambulances have over 100,000 miles on them. They're quickly approaching 110,000 miles. Just for the board's edification, we put about 12,000 miles on, if you were to average it out among the 3 ambulances, we average 12,000 miles among the 3. And depending on what we have in service versus out of service, some of those miles, the lion's share goes to 1 or 2 of our squads. So I think that this is a very responsible use of the funds that we have right now. And it's not something that we're doing necessarily ahead of time, but I think it allows us to catch up a little bit from the from kind of the waiting game that we've had to do for the last few years, being very fiscally conservative when it comes to our capital expenditures for our fleet.
Also move for discussion.
Second, Schultz?
Discuss.
So I know Trustee Schultz has worked with you with your budget, your capital improvement budget, Chief. Can either of you discuss how this falls in and what this will do over the next few years for capital improvements in other areas as well? I know you're in need of an ambulance. I'm concerned about expending funds, giving the, what many believe is going to be an economic downturn to pay for COVID CARES Act monies expended by the government. So I'm concerned about that moving forward. I've mentioned that in the past, and I'd like to hear any discussions happen.
Certainly, I'd be happy to, but I don't want to supplant anything that Trustee Schulte would have.
All right, I'll take a stab at this.
Go ahead.
So in his budget plan, he was scheduled to acquire an ambulance next year in 2021. I have not analyzed to see if this is going to impact the amount that we would want to set aside in his 2021 budget to capital. I haven't analyzed that. But I would think rationally that if an ambulance costs $200,000 and it lasts X number of years, that the amount's going to be consistent whether we buy a new one now or not.
It takes 6 months to get it, right?
That's right.
We're buying it tomorrow.
That's good point, Scott. Thank you.
So
So I would suspect though, since a good amount of money, $200,000 is coming out of the carryover budget / capital reserves, that you're going to see a slight increase in the amount of his annual cost in his 2021 budget. I would think the amount that would be allocated to capital budget would increase slightly, but I don't think dramatically. I just haven't done the math on it.
So to dovetail onto that, and I agree, this really over the long haul, I believe this represents a relatively small amount that would increase our needed carryover year over year. The other thing to keep in mind is when we initially established that capital budget plan, it was just as much driven by our needs as it was by our lack of capital. So we were budgeting using very conservative numbers. It was before we had the levy. It was before we considered, even thought about CARES Act funding. So I would just reiterate that the benefit versus the small increase in carryover compared to what our plan is right now is small.
Realistically, as you pointed out, Scott, if you have a 6 month to delivery anyway,
Right.
so you're into 2021.
Yeah. Probably into the last part of the season.
Except that it would be encumbered in 2020.
Yeah.
So it's as spent. I mean, it's due
Right.
as spent,
It's not like
but the
we're
cash isn't.
jumping the gun.
Right. The other thing that I like about this is that it's coming out of the, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's coming out of the operating budget. It's not coming out of the capital reserve that was just established.
Correct.
That is correct.
And do you think there's enough capital reserve there, Chief, to make payroll and keep operations going if there was an economic downturn for a reasonable
Yes.
period?
For a reasonable period, obviously, if it was,
I understand.
given enough time.
Plan for rain, but you can't plan for hurricane, right?
You got it.
Anything else?
I'm not sure we have a motion on that yet.
Yeah, we do. I moved and Schulte seconded.
He mowed.
Yeah, I moved, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you're right, I'm sorry.
I moved, so I'm sorry.
All right. Linda, please call the roll.
Trustee Dressler?
Yes.
Trustee Palmer?
Yes,
Trustee Schulte?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item for consideration is approving the early repayment of an advance to the Fire EMS Fund, 2191 from the general fund. This should be relatively familiar to the board, but just as a refresher, a couple years ago when we needed to buy a new self-contained breathing apparatus, we did not have the funding. and we basically borrowed that from the general fund. This is money that's going to be owed. There's really no sense in waiting to pay the money back. The fire department has the funds, so it's one less thing that we would have to put in the mix to account for coming out of our budget year over year. And I think that this is also an advisable expenditure and resolution.
So move Schulte.
Second, Colmer.
Discussion.
If I might, just, so I've been doing some preliminary work on the temporary appropriations. And so today, and I apologize, Chief, because I have not had a chance to really talk to you about this, but today I put in the capital budget allocation that we just approved and this repayment of the advance in Fund 2191.
Is in there.
And, well, I'm putting the whole 188,000 versus 47,000 in there. And it will need to be reviewed for next year, putting any kind of capital expenditures away because it will strap it. I mean, we did plan on 47,000 for 5 years, and to do 4 years in 1 year is,
You're talking about 2191.
yes, fund number 2191.
Specific.
Did I say something?
No, but I'm saying it's fund specific is
Right.
the issue.
Specifically fund number 2191. It's the operating fund. Everything is taken out of 2191. Or it has been this year as well. So it uses the money that it receives. There isn't a lot of leeway in that fund. So to be able to do the capital expenditure fund plus this 188,000 is going to put it in a situation that you might not be able to do that capital expenditure allocation next year. Just putting it out. It will be, make it close.
Well.
Yeah, that's an issue.
So I might suggest giving me a little bit more time to look at that and considering this on the 28th. You can certainly do it, as long as it's done before year end, it's the same transaction. But I would like just some time to look at that because I was thinking originally it was about 141,000 and then we got numbers from fiscal and it is not. So I want to make sure that we're not strapping that fund by paying in advance too soon.
By waiting 3 weeks and allowing you to do your research.
I have to have the temporaries done by the 28th, so it'll be done by.
I guess my question is, will that impact other people that might be looking at the township financials in any way between now and then?
Certainly. Mhm.
So would we be wise maybe to take 3 years instead of 4 years now and allocate that?
Or two.
I think that anybody looking at the financials can be told what the situation is and it should suffice.
Okay. As
I
long as you
mean,
don't,
yeah,
it doesn't help to do a portion of it now. but- Okay,
no.
all right.
And I apologize, Chief, I just was working on it at around 4 o'clock and I didn't have a chance to talk.
I'll move to table.
Second Schulte.
Call for the vote. I vote yes.
Colmer, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Thank you. Chief Bauer.
So, Ms. Marshall, if you could give me my next slide.
Sure.
So this is something that we had to research rather quickly. I believe that there's an opportunity here for us to get some more reimbursement funding for personal protective equipment that we have used specifically related to the COVID-19 pandemic. It took a while for us to nail down the fact that other grant funding does not make us ineligible for this reimbursement. It's something that's due by the end of December, and that's why you're seeing it here. I don't have an exact number because that is something that we were not able to accomplish in time for this meeting in order to go back and calculate exactly how much we would be applying for. Obviously, we're only going to apply for those things that are eligible, but I believe this is something that we can take advantage of. And the last thing I want to do is leave money on the table that we could otherwise get, so that it's less money the taxpayers are funding.
So move Schulte.
Second, Kohler.
Discussion. I will call for the vote. I vote yes.
Yes.
Schulte, yes.
Chief, can I ask you a question while what's pertaining to this specific incident? Are you still getting your, are you picking up the PPE push from EMA when they come out?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, as a matter of fact, we got, I would refer to it as one of the more impressive distributions that they've given us about 2 weeks ago, give or take.
That was the one including gowns?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for Chief Bauer? Thank you, sir.
I still have a couple more things. If Miss Marshall could advance the slide.
Well, it has yet to be determined.
I have to come back
Okay.
later for Chief Meyer.
Go ahead.
So the monthly report was sent out. It's on email for your review. We did have our busiest month ever in November. So you can see that in front of you. Again, scarlet and gray colors did very well against Michigan State. If I could have the next slide. So this is something that I showed the board last month. It just gives you a quick overview of our trend as our patient encounters with COVID-19 probable patient encounters continue to rise. And I've got one last slide that I'll share.
Excuse me, the December numbers only reflect up until Friday. Is that accurate?
Yes, up to today.
Up till then, okay, thank you.
Year to date. And then really quickly, I put together for the board's information, this is the impact COVID-19 has had on our staffing. This is straight out of our scheduling program. We've had 194 hours of missed work because of COVID-19, and we've paid overtime hours for 151 hours related to filling shifts as it relates to COVID-19. So I thought the board might be interested in that. And that's all I have for tonight, unless somebody has something for me.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Meyer,
Thank you.
welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. You should have before you the Police Department monthly report for November 2020 with a look back to November 2019. I hope you received that. You did?
Online.
Yes.
Yes, online.
Okay. And the administrative assistant indicated that I was supposed to do the purchase orders and blankets.
Mhm.
Okay, but it doesn't appear on the agenda, so I wasn't sure if you got a copy or not. Or on my agenda.
It's resolution.
Okay,
Purchase orders.
okay. So the resolution asking approval of purchase orders and blanket certificates for 2021. And these are those items that we have every year that have reoccurring costs or things we do every year, like maintenance fees for certain pieces of equipment and certain supplies.
Also move.
Second, Schulte.
Discussion. Please call the roll.
Mr. Dressler?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
Thank you. And also, as a matter of information, The radar trailer that we share with the Bath Police Department that moves back and forth between our two communities, that we are able to position in various neighborhoods where there are speeding complaints, was struck by a speeder in Bath Township and destroyed. And the trailer itself was over 20 years old. So the Bath Police Department handled
Fireman
it.
hit it?
What's that?
Are we gonna go on with the fireman hit it?
No, I don't know who.
We were on call.
I don't know who did it. So the Bath Police Chief / Township Administrator handled the insurance claim on that, and the insurance had paid out a total of $8,217.50, I think. So we are receiving one half of that, $4,108.75. In my discussions with the Bath Police Chief, he indicated they are not interested in replacing the trailer because they have gone to the portable signs like we did to mount on poles, although I thought there was some good application for the trailer. So I may come back to it at a later point in time and ask to purchase one of those this year. I'm kind of putting some figures together on that. They're actually, the $4,000 we received would go a long way to purchase a new one. So we'll talk about that later on, because it's a little bit more mobile. The signs work very well in some areas, but the trailer works very well in others. And so we'll talk about that at a later date, but in terms of the partnership with Bath, they're not interested in doing so at this time.
I think the trailer has more of a presence, more of an effect on
It
speeders.
does, and we can move it.
Yeah.
We can move it
Obviously,
around.
we run them over, so there must be.
Yeah.
How fast was the person that hit it going?
I don't think we know, because after it got struck, it was totally destroyed, so we couldn't tell how fast they were going. But if it was a fireman that struck that, that's interesting, because I wasn't told that. I told him it was an unknown person.
I was just getting a lead in there, Chief.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have this evening, other than the fact I would like to recognize, because I've not heard this today very much, either in the media or anywhere else, in my travels today, that people seem to have forgotten that it was about 79, I think it was exactly 79 years ago today, was Pearl Harbor. And there's been a lack of recognition of that, and I think that that's absolutely disgusting, that people need to pay attention to that more. We're more concerned with not hurting the feelings of pro athletes. We need to take a step back and remember what happened 79 years ago today. And interestingly enough, I had coffee with a gentleman this morning, a couple of guys, mostly retirees from the area, one of which was a Vietnam veteran, and he, as a Vietnam veteran, with everything that they went through, coming back and not getting the same respect that other soldiers have through the years, actually lack of respect. He turned to one of the men in the group who's a World War II veteran and said, "I always thank you guys for your years of service because I still speak English." So I thought it was kind of interesting that he was very thankful to a World War II veteran when he went through quite a bit. In fact, some of the things he was telling us today really opened my eyes, even though I've tried to pay attention through the years. And he also is suffering tremendous health problems related to Agent Orange, but carries himself with his head up and contributes a lot to the community. So I just thought we should remember that.
Thank you.
And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Chief. Thank you, Chief. Mark? You had your snow event.
Our snow event that we had on Tuesday worked about 16, 17 hours, spread about 300 tons of road salt, keep the community safe. And I think the guys did a great job. I commend my crew for that.
Everything got salted.
Got another 300 tons on order so we can stock up the salt again and keep our bin filled. First order of business for the board tonight is a request of a resolution approving a purchase order to OE Meyer in the amount of $4,720 to purchase two additional air purifiers. These smaller units that we have are not large enough to take on bigger rooms such as this one and the day room, training room, in the fire department. So we'd like to buy two of the larger units that'll take care of the larger square footage rooms in those two locations.
So move for discussion.
Second, Schulte.
Discussion.
As the board members know, I sent an email out, asked for a meeting with department heads. And we met the Friday morning, I believe.
But this week, what is today?
Today's-
It's Monday, so yes, it was Friday.
Yeah. Friday morning.
I don't know what day it is.
As a result, was the email going around about the procedure to keep people here as safe and clean as possible. These air purifiers were mentioned as a asset to use specifically in this room and a mobile one. So, or a couple small ones, one here, larger one for this room. And so, I'll give you a little bit of that background to note that this purchase came out of that meeting and was vetted out between all the department heads, myself and the township administrator.
Thank you.
Anything else? Linda, please call the roll.
Trustee Dressler?
Yes.
Trustee Colner?
Yes.
Trustee Schiller?
Yes.
Thank you. You did get the November monthly report for the service department today. I apologize for sending it late to you, but I did get it finished and sent to you today. The only other request I have is for an executive session to discuss pending litigation with legal counsel. And that's all I have for the board tonight.
Anything else from Mark? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Loud?
Good evening, everybody. My first request is a motion to extend to June 2021 the temporary increase in time for temporary tents permitted for the time period they're permitted to be in place. The current regulation allows for 4 events amounting to 10 days each, so 40 days annually. We extended this back in May, I believe, and we're recommending extending this to a 90 days again until June 1st of 2021 as a result of the need to have areas for outdoor dining as a result of the pandemic. Many restaurants you'll see will do the tents or they'll do the igloos and stuff like that. So this is just to allow them to continue that through the winter if they can accommodate that.
First or June 30th?
Either one's fine.
Can we make it coterminous with the termination of the pandemic? That way he doesn't have to come back to the board again?
Fine with me.
Oh, okay.
So when the governor said the
No.
pandemic's over?
Yeah, well, that's not. That's the big difference. You'll be a national, the state, and then the county to say, we're not gonna declare, I don't know.
My only point is, rather than have to come back, let's just say, or we follow county rules or state rules,
Well, how many years do you think it'll go?
I don't want to cover it again.
You don't wanna have to take 2 minutes to discuss it?
I mean, we can, but why don't we just make it coterminous with?
Well, we can make it terminate when the government terminates the.
When everyone gets the vaccine?
Yeah.
Okay,
Going to make a suggestion.
go ahead.
So if you would like to tie it to something, you're going to have to tie it to something specific. So what you could do is tie it to the state level state of emergency. So when Ohio deems the emergency is no longer needed and in place, then it could coincide with the expiration of the tent permits.
That's what I was trying to say, but he said it much better than I.
That's what I would do too. When the governor says it's no longer emergency, we know.
Is that okay?
Yeah, fine with me.
Yeah, so somebody write, state the motion as you wanted to read then,
I'll make a motion. Do we need a vote on the
just
first?
amending this.
Okay,
motion.
I would amend the first motion to state to extend the temporary increase of time, which for temporary tent permit to the point at which the governor releases the state from a state of emergency.
All right,
Second, sure.
okay. That's the new. Any other discussion?
Really quick, I am curious how a tent has better ventilation than a building.
Yeah.
There's no size.
Just a personal comment.
It just has to be a canopy.
I think what they're trying to do
Dining
is,
fly or,
right, they spread out their dining inside, so to increase their dining room size, they put a tent up as well. That's all.
no, that's exactly, my son in Chicago said people building these huge outdoor tents, they're like restaurants outside, but they're in a tent, so they qualify as outdoor dining, but he said it's just another restaurant.
Whereas a
It's
building,
exactly what you just
a building
described.
has air exchange requirements,
Yeah.
building permits.
So they're
Tents don't.
building these outdoor restaurants, fully enclosed in the tent. All right. I call for the vote, I vote yes.
Colmer, yes.
Shelby, yes.
All right, thank you. I'd like to enter into some discussion regarding the proposed contract with CESO Engineering for professional services related to the infrastructure project on Sunset Drive. So last week, I sent you all the proposal prepared by CESO as a result of the request for qualifications that we posted earlier in the year. I wanted to give the board an opportunity to ask me any questions or have some discussion for the proposal before we move forward with signing that. I believe we had some discussion at the last meeting about executing an agreement with the Audubon property owner who owns a portion of land very crucial to the completion of this project before signing that contract. So if the board is in agreement with holding off on that, we can work with legal counsel. We've already sent over some information last week on what those terms would be, and we can put something together quickly, as quick as we can.
That would be my preference.
I think, or we had a question before, just it needs all the specifics for what we need on our side need to be in there so that there's no confusion or,
At least trying to eliminate confusion as much as possible.
right, so
Yeah.
we're fine with that.
Yeah, I think the business terms are fairly well settled, but it needs put into a legal document
Yeah,
and all the legalese that we're not capable of doing. Thank you, Dave Firestone.
yeah, and I think we'll be able to put some flexibility in there, give or take, and parties agree in good faith to have discussions on some of the finite details of exchange of land and stuff like that. I did speak with CESO today because the proposal was sent on November 25th and it says it expires in 30 days, which would be Christmas. If they would work with us to get this agreement in place, and they said 1 to 2 months is no problem. So the fee will remain the same while we work on executing the agreement.
Did you have any questions on the CESO contract? Because we could get those ironed out while we're waiting for
Yeah.
the Audubon
I didn't see any.
contract.
You got me, Janice. I didn't look at the CISO contract because I figured we were kicking it.
It's all right, we're not voting on anything here.
Right.
I'll review it and have
Okay.
the answers for you next week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the email I sent over tried to summarize it a little bit because it is, rather long. The highlight really is that there is a phase A kind of preliminary engineering that amounts to about $79,000 to analyze, do a lot of conceptual layouts, land planning, underground investigations, kind of know what we're dealing with before we get to full stage design. So that's an element we wanted them to include before we, move forward with final engineering and submitting all that. So we've got some leeway with that. So yeah, if there are any other questions pop up, let me know. Okay, and then I just continue discussion on water and sewer update. A lot of the water and sewer update will continue to be discussed as we enter into this, if we do enter into the contract with CESO to design Sunset Drive and subsequently look at sewer along Copley Road. We will also be holding a special meeting on Wednesday to discuss with Environmental Design Group, water and sewer, capital planning for the township. So we've been working with them. They've got about 50% through their period of design. So we'll be working with them with the trustees to highlight some priority projects in those areas and some very general planning for the future for water and sewer. We've reached out and we're waiting to hear back from Summit County Department of Sanitary Sewer Services to set up a follow-up meeting as a result of the meeting with the City of Akron and Summit County Sanitary Sewer Services. So we're looking to meet with them and follow up on some of the discussion that we had at the meeting on the 18th. I would also like to work on submitting a few specific projects and specific scenarios that we discussed with the City of Akron to follow up with them separately as well. Hopefully we can either meet again, all three parties, or just meet with the City of Akron as well to share some proposals with them on specific projects that we're looking at that we've been discussing the last several months. So that's the update on water and sewer from my end.
Another township has contacted us, another township that is a party to a jet agreement with Akron has contacted us about seeing if we can work together to move Akron along. And we're going to continue to foster those discussions.
Okay, absolutely.
I've also, to dovetail on that, I've also had some discussion with county council personnel about working, asking them to be a proponent in working with Akron to make something happen here and get things moved along as well.
Okay, good. Yeah, the more discussions can help. I think the townships, putting a lot out there so far in the last year on our own of doing some due diligence and some planning for water and sewer. And so it'd be really nice to partner with some of these agencies to move these projects to get them in the ground. So yeah, any other questions on that? Okay. The next item is discussion on the township's relationship with the CIC, which is designated as an agency for development. So I know this is may come off as a surprise and something we haven't discussed yet, but I just want to briefly go over it, introduce the topic to the trustees, and I will continue to come back with you with more information or any questions you have. But in short, I wanted to make you aware of discussions I've had with the CIC board about an agreement with the trustees between the two parties. When the CIC was formed in 2017, the Board of Trustees designated the CIC via resolution as the agency for economic development for commercial, industrial, research development. The resolution goes on. And that allows, when you adopt that resolution and you designate the CIC as this agency, it allows the CIC to enter an agreement with the trustees and to adopt an economic development plan, which the CIC enforces on behalf of the trustees. So it's different than just a CIC just forming on its own. That specific language in 1724.10 of the revised code. I have a copy of it here if anybody wants to look at it as well. That designates this agency, and then it goes on to talk about the agreement. And so as we talk about township-owned property, Jacoby Kibler was a recent example, and other property that the CIC would have the ability to not only sell, but be transferred from the township and then sell. I really think that agreement has to be in place. And all the townships that I've found that are designated agencies like RCIC have this agreement in place and have adopted an economic development plan that coincides with that. The CIC has developed a strategic plan. So these are generally boilerplate agreements that just outline the process. This would allow the CIC to collect some kind of service fee. If the CIC were to sell the money and still kind of make some income on the back end, if the CIC were to sell the property for a good return. So it's a way to get the property off the township's hands without having to go through all the hoops, obviously. That's kind of the point of it. And then the CIC would be able to make some income as well. So I think the agreement really just formalizes that relationship. And again, that's what I've seen. I've called around to other CIC directors. We've reached out to experts, in this field, both, legally and professionally. And that seems like the right approach. So if there's no questions about that, I'm going to probably be working on getting some agreements together and, getting it before both boards, for review and any other questions. But I just wanted to introduce the topic tonight and see if you had any questions or thoughts.
From what I can tell, I don't think it is, it's really a piece of paper that explains what the relationship is. So, we can still transfer property to the CIC. They can still sell it. They can still, make money off of that. It's just having it outlined in a document that says that's what the intent is of the township, because this is a designated agency township. So we kind of had previously just kind of thought of them as an independent body. And I'm not sure that relationship is exactly just an independent body. So this document pretty much just outlines that agreement. And, if, for instance, the township could still hold title to a property and say to the CIC, go sell it once.
Mm-hmm.
And then we, as the township, would get all the proceeds. They might take a service fee for that.
Mhm.
So if the township didn't want to necessarily give the property to the CIC, or the CIC didn't really want to take it on their books, there's different ways of handling that. So I think this document would just outline all those options. I'm not sure it's going to make a huge influence on how things are operating or how things really move, but it is a legal requirement that I think we need to look into and get in place.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point from Ms. Marshall. I don't think it's going to, pigeonhole either boards into certain decisions. It's just, when you are this designated agency, it says, you have the ability to enter into this agreement. I've gone back and forth on it. I'm sure the CIC bored to death with going over this discussion several times. It's very confusing, as you just heard. But it seems like every CIC does it. It's the right thing to do, and just to ink the agreement. So again, just wanted to introduce it tonight, and I'll come back with some examples and templates, and we'll obviously have Mr. Firestein review it on behalf of the trustees and so forth.
So I'll tell you, being a new trustee, there was really no documentation of the relationship between the CIC and the township.
Mhm.
And I think this would be a very good thing to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the CIC has always kind of not floundered, but been apprehensive to make moves because they know that, well, what does the township think about that? They do want to know what your views are and so forth. And, then you have the other voice that says, oh, no, we're independent. We're not supposed to wonder trustees. So I think this just will clarify what that relationship is. And I think it will be helpful. That they're not necessarily creating this economic development plan on their own, that there's correlation, particularly because of the funding at this point is through the township. So it needs to be part of the whole discussion as well. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then I do have a request for executive session to discuss employment of personnel in the Community and Economic Development Department. And then my last slide is the monthly report, which I sent out to you all earlier. Just if
Hit the 2 arrows.
that's okay.
Good job, Mark.
There we go. So yeah, the highlights I sent over in the email, 27 permits processed in the month of November. That is the second, that's the second highest count we had aside from May. So a really strong month. Again, I think I mentioned this last month, a lot of that was as a result of the Redwood apartments along Ridgewood. If you've not driven by there, they're pretty well on their way to being built out. Estimated valuation of improvements is 6.5 million, our highest month of the year for November. And then year-to-date total valuation is 22 million, already 5 million ahead of 2019. So again, pretty strong year given the pandemic and circumstances surrounding, but construction and investment in Copley was still very strong throughout 2020. Yeah, any questions on the monthly report?
Anything else, Lyle? You have an exec session this month, you said?
Yes, for personnel in the community and economic development, employment of personnel.
All right.
Thank you.
Old business?
I have 2 items. One being that the cameras that we purchased through the COVID money that we received for streaming in the North Room here of all the meetings, all the equipment has been received by our consultant, and he will be installing that Saturday morning at 9. So I'll come and open up the building for him. It'll take him, he said, most of the day. And then he'll come back next week and do some training for myself and Clarissa and Shauna or whomever is interested. So that should be in place for the next meeting for sure. Also, The AT&T service that we approved last year, or last week, or last meeting, how about?
The first net,
Yes, the first net will be onboarded the week of December 14th. So they're gathering all of the equipment and we'll be here onboarding all those people on the 14th.
is there gonna be disruption in service for MDTs or EMS transmissions?
I don't know. I would think minimal if at all.
Simple answer is no.
Thank you.
I can put them back on.
Anything else? New business?
I do have just one piece of new business, and it's just a webinar that I attended this week on the vaccine distribution and how it affects governments and so forth. And I think most of the webinar was based on things that the county will be involved in doing as far as distribution centers and handling out the vaccine and all of the distribution and the tracking and all of that. I'm sure will most likely, I would guess, come from the county. But one thing that they did stress was the information piece of it and how our social media needs to be on top of it, giving good information as to where you can get the vaccine, how, what the parameters are, if there's been any adverse reactions or not, so that people feel comfortable getting the vaccine and they have good information from a source that they trust. So I'm going to be looking to social media to come up with some plan as far as what information and how often that gets put out in front of the public as much as possible. They're expecting it very soon, so I anticipate we'll be getting something from the county on the call tomorrow morning as far as procedure and so forth that they're going to put in place. But this is a huge undertaking and it's going to involve all levels of government. So we are aware of that, and probably at the department head meeting tomorrow, I'd like to put some type of committee together that we meet periodically to make sure we're getting the right information out, make sure that our residents know where the vaccine can be received and what the parameters are as far as how that happens. So that's an important thing that's going to be coming up even these next couple of weeks.
Supposed to receive 95,000 doses of it early next week.
Where?
The state is supposed to receive it.
Yeah, and I imagine people will be curious as to what phases it's being put out in, first responders. I know long-term care facilities are getting
Those are
some
the two,
initially.
those are the same group.
Yeah, so the more information I think we give people, the better off we are, because we just need to tell them what's happening so that they're comfortable and aware of what the situation and procedure will be. So we want to make sure that we're on top of that.
Anything else? Correspondence?
I have some correspondence from Russ Corwin regarding the broken pole on Jacoby Road. I sent pictures, or I sent an email, not pictures. I do have pictures of the broken
Wait,
pole.
Mark responded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I contacted Frontier's construction manager. Did not speak with him directly, left a message to ask him to expedite the repairs because of the growing health hazard at that facility.
What can be done if it continues to, the trash continues to
Well,
accumulate?
who's picking the trash up?
Huh?
Who's the trash hauler?
Kimball?
Kimball?
Mhm.
Request they send a smaller truck.
You'll have to do it by hand. You'll have to request it, yeah. It's just,
I will call them and see.
Their truck won't fit under there, send a smaller truck to get that dumpster.
And
Well, regardless, a smaller truck would fit underneath the wires.
All right.
I have an item from a resident that was forwarded on to me. A resident called to say thank you for keeping the park so nice. She goes to the park every day and just loves it and has made a donation to the park. So I want to thank Mark and your crew for putting in all of the effort you do into the park. It really does look beautiful most of the time.
Most of the time.
Most of the time when I
Most
go.
of the
Looks like your wife's
She's there
handwriting.
every year. It doesn't look great all the time.
Exactly. I shouldn't have said most of the time. I went all the time. Even more than all the time. It looks spectacular all the time. Sorry about that. She did say keeping the park so
Tell-
nice. Goes
tell
to the park
Janice,
every day.
Stick
Loves
to
it.
the script.
Made a donation.
If she didn't add lift, it would have been fun.
I know. Next time I'm gonna have you read the correspondence.
Well, we thank her for her donation. You
Anything else?
guys do a good job.
Yeah, it is, one of the last things. Socially distancing.
One thing I forgot to ask,
Go ahead.
as correspondence in Loudon and Janice, I forwarded the email to you, the resident that was requesting connection to water.
Mhm.
What was the resolution of that?
So I emailed her and asked her where she lived, and then I sent an email to the city of Akron today. We had another individual, another property owner that on the north side of Copley Road that wanted to see about water. So I sent 2 requests to the city of Akron today. So they usually get back with us really quick. So I gave him her email too, if they like to contact them directly.
They just want to tap in.
Yes.
They just need a feed. Okay.
It needs they're on greening, so it'll have to be extended down from apple tree. But the city of Akron usually responds very quickly. So
So
hopefully
we'll
we-
lease the cost.
yeah, hopefully we give her an answer soon.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. We have a request for executive session. I'll move to go to an executive session to discuss labor contracts.
Second, Schulte.
I'll let you finish it off. Sorry, Scott. Jump the gun.
No big deal. We have a request to discuss. We have a request from Service to discuss pending litigation with counsel. David Firestein is with us, and the go to meeting. We have a request from Department of Economic Development to discuss employment of personnel. Any other requests for executive session? All right, and Jim said he will second.
Yes, sir.
Linda, please call the roll.
Trustee Dressler?
Yes.
Trustee Colner?
Yes.
Trustee Schulte?
Yes.
All right, we will take a 5-minute break. And we need, for labor, we need everybody. Department heads, yeah, we do have a